What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. Well, Monday Night Football is back, and the Jets fly 5 hours across the country to get curb stomped by the 49ers. McCaffrey on the sideline, Ricky Pearsall recovering from a gunshot wound. Trent Williams looks about 400 pounds. None of it matters. Niners work the Jets. We will dive in to the game. Obviously, the Niners showed up, showed out, move on, and get Sam Darnold, a.k.a. Joe Montana, next week. The Jets, who are the all-hype team, the Notre Dame of the NFL, get a healthy Rodgers, who we got to dive into because social media was anointing him like fully back. I don't know. His arm, we'll dive into Rodgers because I saw a couple things and just the overall hype on the Jets. I think there are serious question marks to one. I mean, a lot of people have just, if they're fully healthy, they can win a Super Bowl. Let's pump the brakes. Let's just go, are they fully healthy? Can they compete to make the playoffs? And I wanted to do a little thing. I got to give credit to a listener. We're going to do Koff's Penthouse and Outhouse. That is, instead of doing a top 5 or a top 10 or a bottom 5, my team's in the Penthouse, and there are a couple teams in the Outhouse. Let me tell you. I actually think I look more forward to the Outhouse because there are some doozies. And one of the teams in the Outhouse, their quarterback, who they're getting paid, paying him a lot of money, who's obviously terrible, is getting sued again. And I read Florio wrote a little write-up on the lawsuit. And listen, I'm never comfortable doing he said, she says. But, man, he has a lot of similarities in a lot of his allegations over the years. That's for damn sure. It's got to feel good if you are Cleveland, Ohio, rooting for that guy. But as PFT commenter said, he's a better football player than he is a human. So he's got that going for him. And we'll talk a bunch of other stuff. Football's back. How good does this feel? We got week 1 in the books. We're off and running, and I'm excited. And if you want to go to one of these games, I knew a lot of people at the game tonight. I don't want to say I had FOMO because it's hard to beat from your own couch, but I've been to a lot of games at Levi's, several Monday night games. Anyone listening that's been to a Monday Night Football game, especially for your squad, they're always a lot of fun. There's always a lot of anticipation all day Monday when you know you're rolling to the game. Especially us on the West Coast, if you get to leave work a little bit earlier. For those of you guys on the East Coast, you don't even get there. The game doesn't, I've lived in Philly. Games don't kick off till 8:15. Don't know how you do it. But college, pro, concerts, tennis match. I saw Taylor Swift and the Mahomeses at the U.S. Open. Any event you want to go to. Been using these guys for a long time. Official ticketing partner of this podcast. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code JOHN, John, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. It's funny hype, and I buy into it sometimes. I'm a fan. I get excited. I love sports. So I never have a problem with people being excited. But you see it in football all the time in certain brands, and a lot of people are tweeting me, why do the Jets get so much hype? And my first take always is, well, a large percentage of the media is based in that area, and they would love for the Jets to be good. Yet in this offseason, and listen, I probably overreacted a little bit because the Niners had multiple holdouts. The McCaffrey injury is very concerning. We'll dive into a second. Everyone's like, the Niners, they're done. And then they play the Jets, and they absolutely thoroughly work them. They kicked their ass. Quick game ball. Maybe we'll start doing some game balls on Monday night. Christian McCaffrey is inactive a couple hours before the game with a calf/Achilles, which is very, very scary. Anytime that Achilles pops up on injury reports, I always look at those and listen, I'm not a doctor, just was an ag business major and barely listened in school, is that it feels like, and I saw it last year with Dre Greenlaw, I remember Richard Sherman with Seattle, it pops up, and then it goes. But I've been singing this guy's praises because I've watched him in practice for 2 years. And Kyle at the halftime was like, we've been using this guy a lot the last couple of years. No, you haven't, Kyle. This guy's really, really good. And he destroyed the Jets. I mean, he looked like, and we talked about this last night with the Rams, the mark of a really good team and a really good culture. Like, good teams have great players. You look at the Chiefs, like Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, Trent McDuffie. But what happens when one of those guys gets hurt? What happens when one of your consistent stalwart starters is not around? What's the backup look like? And the good teams, usually the backup looks like high-level starters. Why? Because to compete in the organization, to operate in the operation, you got to be really good at football. You got to take it seriously, not just on the practice field, in terms of training, in terms of your mental work. This summer, Jordan Mason, one reason I think Kyle wouldn't put him on the field, because there were a lot of question marks. Could he catch the ball? What did he do? He spent like $4,000 on a jugs machine. Who did he have shoot him balls? His mother. Now, tonight, they didn't really need him to catch the ball because he ran it right down your throat. And one of the best part about Kyle's run scheme and the Shanahans, including Kubiak, who I include as a Shanahan family member, nobody schemes the run better. Because when they get you off balance in the zone running scheme, obviously Trent Williams has the power to shove you around, but you don't need powerful offensive linemen. It's about positional blocking. And then the running back chooses where to go. It's why when you get a great player like a Christian McCaffrey in that scheme, they can dominate. I remember when I got to the league and the Houston Texans were leading the league in rushing, Aaron Foster was unreal in that scheme. And you saw Jordan Mason, you got to do two things to play for Kyle. Run downhill at a physical pace and know the hole to hit. And he was doing that all night long. Breaking tackles, running through guys, running hard, running with very good instincts. When a little gap hit, he hit it, and you don't dance around. Dancing in the zone scheme is death, and he didn't do it. So 28 carries, 147 yards, a touchdown, replacing not just one of the best players on the team, but one of the best players on the league. And let's face it, like, one of the question marks is, who knows when we're going to see Christian McCaffrey again? Because as Adam Schefter said on the pregame, he's not going to play. But the best part about being a well-run organization and drafting good players, developing good players, Jordan Mason is an undrafted free agent, is, yeah, he might have to play for a long time. And you know what he'll do? If he can stay on the field, he'll run for 1,400 yards. So congrats to Jordan Mason, who I'll give him the game ball. I'm sure Kyle and the team will give him the game ball. He embarrassed the Jets, who we'll dive into in a second. And the Purdy conversation is never going to die, but how can you watch that guy play? Beside one bad drive tonight, he was excellent. Do you watch how calm he is in the pocket? Look how many guys, and I'm not even going to count the rookies. It's unfair to put them in. But look how many starting quarterbacks who have played in the NFL for a long time get so skittish in the pocket, who quickly run around when they don't have to. And you watch him, you just see a calm, collected, confident player. And I don't understand the conversation. Like, can't it just kind of die? Can't we just acknowledge Purdy's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL? He's been awesome for the 49ers. And I thought for the most part, he was awesome tonight. If Brandon Ayuk, I don't know if he was working on his diving catches during his hold in, but doesn't drop the ball in the corner of the end zone, Purdy's stat line would have looked even better. I thought Purdy was fantastic. Debo was a man amongst boys. Fred Warner is, to me, the best linebacker in the league. I've been talking about their secondary. It's awesome. They have two legitimate corners. Most good teams have one. They have two. Charvarius Ward and now Lenore. Their safety plays good. Their defensive line's good. The Jets defense is all I hear from the media. The Jets defense, the Jets defense. Bullshit. You saw one real defense and you saw one overhyped defense. The Jets have good players, but are they a good unit? The Niners are both. They have good players and they've been a good unit now for like 5 straight years. So they have a really good quarterback. They have an elite play calling coach. They have replaceable players like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, Jawan Jennings, 7th round pick. One of the better third wide receivers in the league. Debo Samuel. Oh, Christian McCaffrey's out. Jordan Mason needs a blow. Oh, he can just play running back. Oh, they also have George Kittle. Trent Williams, who's really big right now, needs to get back in shape, but the best left tackle in the league. That's a loaded team. And one question mark, honestly, they had last year was their third round kicker, who was extremely erratic. And what was he doing tonight? Splitting the uprights. He actually almost missed the one, but it was like a baby cut on the right fairway. They just came right in to the left side of the fairway. It worked. Hit the upright. Boom. Scored, I think, had a bunch of field goals tonight. I don't have the box score in front of me, but he was automatic. And you saw one of the best teams in the league. I'd argue the second best team in the league. There are two teams, to me, clearly on their own tier. They both dominated their conference now for several years. And the 49ers, like the Chiefs, look every bit as good as they've been. And it'll all come down to key players staying healthy. It's football. Guys are going to get banged up. And I think the only big picture question mark right now with the 49ers is Christian McCaffrey. And is that Achilles going to go? Is it just the calf and the Achilles are working together and something's just a little weird and off and it's going to be okay? I'm pretty concerned. But I think the bright side is when you watch tonight, and this is what good teams do, specifically the Shanahan family, is their backup running back can immediately be inserted and dominate. Now, are the Jets a top 5 defense? I don't think so. But they're definitely pretty solid. And the Niners shoved them around tonight. Absolutely ragdolled them up and down the field. So a lot of people were down on this team. A lot of people want to question the quarterback. All they do is keep winning. I mean, they just rattle off win after win after win after win. I don't know what else to say. Like, sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes they do some weird stuff. But holy shit, do they win a lot. And the other thing, they have guys, their physicality, and this goes to John Lynch and the scouting staff, the type guys they draft. Who are the guys laying on the ground tonight after big hits? It was a lot of Jets. And the Jets are, quote unquote, a physical team. And they were getting smashed. So, and that's what happens when, you know, your $60 million wide receiver can also be a running back who will lower his shoulder over guys. The Jordan Mason, the power in which he runs. You put the ball in George Kittle's hands, he's lowering his shoulder. Even if you have a guy wrapped around his legs, the next guy hitting him is also going to feel pain. They just have a very, very physical team. And how long is this sustainable? Like, is it 5 more years? Probably not. But right now, with all these guys on the field, they got a bunch of tough SOBs out there who are elite players who have won a ton. And if they can just hold the lead in the Super Bowl, they're clearly as good as it gets. Right there with Kansas City. And very, very impressive night from Kyle, the offense, the new defensive coordinator, to just kick the Jets' ass. Now, one thing I would imagine you're going to hear a lot on the television shows and the podcasts, and if you listen to local radio, which is holding on by a shoestring, Aaron Rodgers looks like Aaron Rodgers. I got to pump the brakes on that one. Yes, his arm is fantastic. He's going to be able to throw 95-mile-an-hour fastballs till he's 75 years old. Dan Marino, John Elway right now, if you put him out on a field, could throw a 20-yard out route that looks like an NFL player. The arm is not going to go on Aaron Rodgers. But did you notice one thing? Because I did. I've watched a lot of Aaron Rodgers, like a lot of people. But living on the West Coast, I just watch a lot. I watch a lot more NFC football than AFC football. Depending on where you live over the years, just those are the big games. Before these 4-box situations, most of us 5 years ago previously, you're just watching one main game. And you're just, obviously, Aaron Rodgers and McCarthy and the Packers were just one of the main go-to national games. What made him a great player, and I've seen him live probably 4 or 5 times in my life, was he was the total package. He could dominate as a pocket quarterback, Brady, Manning, Bree style. And then he could scramble around and make throws as good as any player ever. And you watch him tonight in the pocket, can still throw darts, can still throw BBs, still has a fantastic arm. But did you notice him moving around? Oh, wait, you didn't. Because he didn't move. He was stationary. Do you know what he looked like tonight? A more powerful armed Jared Goff. And this is what I've been wondering all offseason long, is the mobility. Because when they traded for Aaron Rodgers, and before he tore his Achilles, even if he was an older 39, 40-year-old guy, he still could move. Maybe not like when he was 30, but he wasn't some stationary player like Phillip Rivers. He wasn't moving the night at all. beside in the little pocket radius. They weren't doing rollouts. He wasn't scrambling and making plays. And I asked myself, are those days gone? And based off 1 week, I'm not going to write it in Sharpie, but I feel pretty confident that we see a new version of this player moving forward. And big picture for the Jets, who countless people, they were the betting favorite to win the AFC East. People picked this team to compete for the Super Bowl. They're going to struggle to win 10 games if this is the version of him, because he's just solid pocket guy. But their team as a whole, that defense is clearly a little overrated. They lost Bryce Huff to the Eagles, who gave them 10 sacks and 21 quarterback hits last year. So they replaced him with Haason Reddick, who had 11 sacks and 23 quarterback hits. The problem is Haason Reddick is just giving away, and it's fluid because it's not necessarily ending unless he shows up, $6 million. So that player doesn't exist. So you watch their defensive line tonight. Quentin Williams is excellent. But where's their extra pressure? Well, Huff's nowhere to be found because he's gone. And his replacement is at home eating Cheetos like me and you on the couch. So their defensive line is just not as good. And their secondary, like Sauce got banged up. It's solid, but it's not exactly Dion and Revis back there. So this team, starting with Robert Saleh, who we have major question marks on, good-looking guy. He does a lot for the bald community by just looking good in shape on national TV. I like him. High-character human being. Is he any good as a head coach? To me, this team, I don't think they're bad, but tad bit overrated might be an understatement. Do you notice a couple other things tonight? And Troy Aikman said, he's like, Rodgers told us we're going to feed Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, which I get, but you need more than that against good teams. So when you can't feed Garrett Wilson, what else can you do? Now, Rodgers is great at it, but not everyone is going to jump at that hard count and you're going to get free plays to Lazard. Their passing game is kind of suspect outside of Garrett Wilson. That's why I think the elephant in the room is if they are competitive, would they trade a first-round pick for Devontae Adams? And I think the answer is yes. I also would say, I don't know if that'd be a great idea because you're dealing with a quarterback who has aged a lot post-Achilles. Honestly, he was aging before he got hurt. But now he's a pretty stagnant player. Still good, still a massive upgrade over what they were playing with. And Aikman said it tonight. Their quarterback play without Rodgers over the last couple of years has been some of the worst in the NFL. And at times the worst in the NFL. So it's better. I'm not disputing that. But the guy that they thought they were getting, that I was like, damn, they just traded for Aaron Rodgers. I guess the trade, we knew it was going to happen and then it took forever. But you know what I mean. The moment we found out the Jets were going to get Aaron Rodgers even well before the trade, it's going to make them real. Well, that guy's not the same guy anymore. You have a guy that can't really move. And then you have a defense that's clearly overrated and a head coach that might not know what he's doing. So I'm not acting like the Jets are going to be the Giants here. But this notion that they can be a Super Bowl contender, bullshit. Let's just work on, can they get the 7 seed? And I have questions. I do not think that's a lock by any means. Because, one, their margin for error with all these older players who get injured a lot is very small. And even this version of Aaron, when they play better teams, he can't put on the Superman cape anymore. Those days are over. And then the team around him, as we saw tonight, might be a little overrated. So they're going to have to play much better football, I would say, to compete to get to that 9-10 mark to put them in the wild card mix. And I think we learned that hype is just that. This is what Belichick was talking about Caleb Williams in preseason. And I'm not acting like I'm not guilty of it. I get excited just like everyone else listening. But like Notre Dame, the Jets are the classic team where the hype constantly exceeds reality. I get the hype on the Dallas Cowboys. They've been winning 12 games. They just get a fumble and a good defensive series or two to go their way. They could win a playoff game that they lost. But this team has the longest running playoff drought in American team sports. Speaks to the organization. It's the total package. What happened tonight? They kind of got into a tough spot. The 49ers started beating on them. Did they match it? No, they kind of wilted. And the Niners knew it. And what did Kyle tell Aikman? Yeah, we're going to try to run it 35 to 40 times tonight between the tackles. What's he basically saying? We don't think they're that tough. We don't think they can match that. He wouldn't say that about the Chiefs or the Ravens or a team that is as equal physically. But when he finds a weakness and he sniffs you out, he's going to exploit it. And they tapped out, and they tapped out early. So pretty concerning that you lose. The Ravens lost. The Rams lost. It's the NFL. Sometimes you just tip your hat. What are you going to do? It's another thing to get your ass kicked like that. So dominant 49er win. Muscle flex for the NFC champs. And pretty embarrassing performance by the Jets. And let's face it, going to be some sphincters getting tight in that place if they lose some tight games. So the pressure on this team is immense, and we'll see how they respond. Touchdowns, TD, Huddy, taking it to the house, in for 6. I like to call it a tug. Whatever you call touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, special teams or defense, we do not care how you score them. We just want to bet touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your bet today. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? I know I do it all the time. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets instantly and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. I wanted to do a little something because I've been trying to figure out how to call my top 10, my top 5, my bottom 10. Someone hit me up and I'm like, I kind of like this. They're like, how about the Penthouse and the Outhouse? I'm like, yeah, I kind of like that. So let's do Middlekauff or Coughs, Penthouse and Outhouse. I think this is a pretty easy one because I only got 2 teams in my Penthouse. I'm not opening the doors of the Penthouse to everybody. And I'm not saying that the teams I'm leaving out aren't good and aren't even Super Bowl contenders. But based on week 1, 2 teams stand out to me, Kansas City and San Francisco. And those were the 2 teams that met in the Super Bowl. So it's like, what about the Eagles? Like, still got some question marks there. What about the Ravens? Like, can Lamar throw from within the pocket? The Bills, like, a little too close for me at home against the Arizona Cardinals. Pittsburgh didn't even score a touchdown. Defense is elite. 5 field goals. The Lions. The Lions, to me, were pretty close. I had the Lions and actually Dallas. Pretty close. And they could easily get in. But right now, the Penthouse, it's going to be hard to crack this door. You win a couple games, impressive fashion, have no problem opening it up. But I also have a hard problem putting teams in there that I don't believe can win the Super Bowl. And as I said last week, like, I don't believe the Ravens can win the Super Bowl. I don't see it happening. So if I don't see it happening, how am I going to put them in the Penthouse, even if they're going to win 11, 12 games? Which I still think probably more of a 10-win team than the 12, 13-win team. I respect them. I'm not a Ravens hater, but Houston would be another team. That was a really, really good win. Really good win. Watch that. They would be knocking on that door big time. They only have 1 playoff victory, but that win on the road in Indy was really impressive. But got to do a little bit more before I let you in. The Outhouse, though, is packed, and it stinks because let's start with probably the least negative would just be the Panthers because we already knew they weren't any good, so it wasn't shocking. I couldn't believe how many different people I heard in the gambling space that liked the Panthers. One problem for me is I loved the Saints and the Buccaneers this weekend to cover, but I used a bunch of parlays to try to get the odds up, and the Titans completely screwed me. But I love those 2 games. It's like rookie quarterback against a playoff team, and you know where I stand on the Saints. I think they're pretty good against the Panthers. They lost by 37 points. I kind of stopped paying attention in the 4th quarter. I looked at the score today. I was like, 47-10? Is this real? He threw a pick to start the game, a pick to start the second half. He went 13 of 30 and obviously those 2 picks. Like, it is a disaster. And then today, Derek Brown, who is a big-time player, who would start for every team in the NFL, probably gone for the season. He's going to get a second opinion, but even Canales was like, yeah, this is not ideal. This is a problem. So the one thing you felt kind of good is like, hey, the front might be good. You lose your best player. Your quarterback sucks. Your coach, I don't know, might be a little over his head, a little too good looking for me. He's just too good looking. But they got David Tepper. That operation is in shambles right now, and it's going to be a long season. Cincinnati. I don't know if Burrow's injured, if they got some weird juju going on with their wide receivers. They obviously consistently lose week one, but to be at home against a team that universally is agreed upon is not going to be any good and score 10 points and lose the game. And the other coach, like a lot of coaches get their first win. Jim Harbaugh just did. You get a game ball in the locker room. Everyone celebrates. It's fun. He got a Gatorade bath. You only give a Gatorade bath to a first-time head coach if you're in a situation where no one thought you could win. And I mean, you talk about survivor pools. I can't even imagine how many people took Cincinnati to win that game. Because if I was in a survivor pool, they would have been near the top of my list. And they didn't just lose. I mean, they looked awful. And here's the other thing. It'd be one thing if Jacoby, well, it's like, Jacoby threw for 260 and 3 touchdowns. Threw for 121 yards. 121 yards. You can't be losing to a team when we hold you to the regard of like, yeah, you can be a Super Bowl contender if you're healthy. Lose to Jacoby Brissett, who throws for 121 yards. Well, let's get to really stinking up the outhouse. Let's start with the Giants. The offseason Hard Knocks was not kind to them. And that viral video of John Morrow, when we were watching it this offseason, I remember doing a podcast like, the owner said, are you guys sure on this? One, are we sure we're handling this correctly? And two, I won't be able to sleep if he goes to Philadelphia. Then not only does he go to Philadelphia, in his first night, in his first game for the Eagles, he scores 3 touchdowns on national television on a Friday night in a standalone game. And then 2 days later, you're not playing Joe Montana or Tom Brady. You're playing Sam Darnold. And he fucking eviscerates you. And Daniel Jones throws another pick 6. Gets booed. Fans are ripping him as he's leaving the stadium. It couldn't have been more embarrassing. And those guys feel like nice guys. I don't see how they survive this. If they just suck this season and Barkley has 20 touchdowns and the Eagles win 11 games, I think that's going to be bad. Because the owner, the guy that signs everyone checks, literally told them in a room, I don't know if this is a good idea. And I give him credit. I'm paying you guys. I'm going to let you make the decision. I'm not going to meddle here. But holy shit, you better be right. Because there are repercussions for missed evaluations and missed decisions. And people are going to be held accountable. And this is not the Rooney family. John Mara has been firing people left and right. And rightfully so. Joe Judge was awful. Pat Shurmur's worse. McAdoo got weird. But he's been running coaches and GMs out of the building. So if this Saquon Barkley, they play him twice. What if he rushes for 200 yards against them and has a game at MetLife and they lose 30-3 and he kind of dances all over their grave? That thing could even get a lot worse. And last but not least, the Cleveland Browns. I can't even imagine being a Browns fan and like even attempting to root for Deshaun Watson. Everything you read about every situation that has come out about him with the massage therapist, and then today on Monday, after an absolute embarrassment of a performance and just, such low-level quarterback play. Like, you don't need to be a coach or a GM to just watch that and go, this is pitiful. Like, this is sad. And just as a football fan, if Deshaun Watson's on your TV just to watch a football player, you will change the channel to go to a different game. But like if Kyler Murray's on TV, there are certain players you're like, I'm going to watch this guy. That's an immediate channel change. So he's an unwatchable player who his question marks off the field are pretty insane. And like I said earlier, I don't like getting into the he said, she said, only know but those two people. And it's happened to a lot of people, and it's all been BS. But how many people have you ever met that have had that many lawsuits that have all had consistent themes against an individual? Like eventually, like walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, might be a duck. And he just feels like a complete loser. I mean, on and off the field. So you are forced to root for this guy because I can't get rid of him. His number is so massive that it makes Russell Wilson's look kind of small. You're just stuck with this player. And they kind of could see it coming because why wouldn't they have just re-signed Joe Flacco? Well, because they didn't want the drama. Because if this guy struggled, what would everyone want? Throw Joe Flacco in the game. So what do? They go sign Jameis Winston, who's funny and has some viral clips, but we all agree is not very good. So it's like they're just going to keep rolling him out. And to get embarrassed like that, the morning Dak signed for $230 million and McCarthy and Dak are just stomping all over your field. It's hard. Like the Panthers stink. We knew it coming in. The Bengals, that was shocking. I think the Giants, we all expected. It was worse given how good Darnold looked and the Saquon situation. But I think no one has had a worse 24 hours when you factor in the character, uneasiness, just disgusting of the whole situation as the Cleveland Browns. I need to tell you about my friends at Mando. This Mando deodorant, the Mount Fuji, I've been using it every day for the last month. I go to the gym in the morning. I'm a sweater. No one wants to smell the rest of the day. Bad body odor, biggest turnoff in America. Well, here's the key. Put a little of this on, you're taken care of. Here's my favorite, though. This invisible cream deodorant I use for my balls. You just put a little pea-size amount on your finger. Boom. I play a lot of golf. Summer in Arizona. It's like 120 degrees. You're sweating. No one wants to stink, especially down there. Boom. They also have these deodorant wipes. You can put them anywhere. Under armpits, down low, on your arms. You want to be smelling good. They will take care of you. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash. I got one in the shower, deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off a starter pack. Use code JOHN, JOHN, at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO, shopmando.com. Now, I wanted to dive into something because I noticed this yesterday on Sunday is there weren't many quarterbacks throwing for 250, 300 yards. Only 2 guys eclipsed 3 Bills. One was Tua, who threw for almost 340 yards, but 80 of them came on a vintage Tyreek Hill pass over the middle, take another 50, 60 yards. And Matt Stafford, who was, for the most part, brilliant on Sunday night. But a lot of guys were 250 and below. And I think we've become accustomed to just expecting guys to throw for 275, 300 yards with their eyes closed. And I remember probably 3 to 4 weeks into training camp, maybe mid, like August 20th range, I was texting with a friend who's an exec on a team. And he's a team with a highly paid star quarterback. I said, how does he look? He said, honestly, John, clearly he throws the ball well, but you can't tell. And this is a guy that had been in the league since the early 90s. He's like, training camp now in the preseason is a complete joke. It's impossible to tell. No one gets hit. No one tackles. And for the most part, beside a couple teams, no high-end players play in the preseason game. I know everyone was like drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. high in fantasy. It's like, guys, he didn't do anything all training camp. He doesn't play any preseason games. So you think he's just going to go on the road against Buffalo, one of the best teams in the league, and have 7 for 110 and 2 touchdowns? It's difficult. We saw it with the rookie quarterbacks, who we'll get into it here in a little bit. But football is not like basketball or baseball. In baseball, right? If I'm a hitter, any time of the year, 365, I can get a major league pitcher and we can just run a live batting practice. He can just pitch me like he would in a game. And while we could be in a batting cage or we could be on a field, it doesn't matter. I can get a look like I normally would in a Major League Baseball game. In the NBA or in college basketball, I can get 10 other guys, or 9, I guess, if I'm one of them, and play a simulated game, even if it might not be exactly the tempo and the pace of a normal NBA game or a normal college game. We can get a legit run in that is actual basketball, right? Play to 21, ones and twos, do whatever. But like, you're guarding people, you're running, you're moving the ball, you're trying. Football is the one sport that the only way you actually play it are the games. Practice doesn't even simulate the games because nobody tackles to the ground. And I would say half the teams barely even touch each other. Some teams do a thing called thud, where you kind of run into each other, hands up, no one goes to the ground, and the offensive guy gets to keep running. Obviously, you can't hit the quarterback. They wear a different colored jersey in practice. So those guys get used to, well, I can never get sacked. Even my joint practices, the defender knows, can't touch the quarterback. It's like the number one rule right now in football. I don't know how they do it in high school, but definitely Division I college football and the NFL, live practices, which aren't actually live because you're not tackling the ground, quarterback is off limits. If anything, as a defender, you run right by him. Maybe you tap him on the ass. So that's not like the game, because the game starts like you can get mollywopped. You can get destroyed. We saw guys yesterday getting destroyed left and right. So you can't simulate that. And now the majority of the league doesn't even play any of the preseason snaps. So you go into the week one, like it's a different speed. And the one thing that jumped off the screen yesterday was the speed of defensive players. They are so fast. And we see it every year at the combine. Speeds have never been quicker. I'm talking defensive linemen. Linebackers are smaller now than they were 30 years ago, but they're all faster. Every DB worth of salt is running a 4.50 or faster, especially corners. And safeties, like, yeah, John Lynch and Steve Atwater might not exist, but those guys aren't as fast as most of the guys starting right now in the NFL. And their speed, also, when you mix in the schemes you get, and this is where Belichick was critical of Caleb, like, preseason's kind of a joke from a schematic standpoint on defense. They're just running the same coverage over and over. And maybe they run one of their go-to blitzes, but you're not getting a lot of looks that are going to make you that uncomfortable. And then you get these regular season games, it's like shit's flying all over the place. So I do think it's tougher, like, no matter what you do, when you're in the mode of doing something, it's easier to keep doing that. When all of a sudden you go 0 to 60, if you take anyone that's taken a vacation for a week, 2 weeks, when you come back, it's like you can be a little rusty. I give the number one sales guy in America 6 months off. That first week back, is he going to be super dialed? It's hard. So imagine being a quarterback that hasn't played anything like what you're going to play week one for 9 months. Even if the rules are on your side, even if the referees are on your side, it's still really hard. And this is where I said about the rookie quarterbacks of like, guys, we need to pump the brakes. We haven't seen a guy held to such a high regard of Caleb since Luck. And there has been a very, very short group of guys that were just like, this guy's can't miss. He's going to be a superstar. It's like, this shit is really, really hard. These defensive coordinators make millions. The other guys, the 11 guys lining up on, like Jeffrey Simmons drives a Range Rover and lives in a mansion and goes to the Pro Bowl, even though it's not a game and they just do activities now. Like, they got real players. Like, it's really hard. I remember asking about the wide receivers at during the combine to a buddy of mine that's a wide receiver coach. It's like, what do you think of Marvin Harrison? Like, obviously he's really good, but he's playing Iowa, Rutgers, Wisconsin every week. In the NFL, every week or every other week, he's going to be playing a guy that makes $13 million, who's been to a couple Pro Bowls, who's got 2 kids, and who lives in one of the biggest houses in his neighborhood and likes that lifestyle. and ain't trying to give it up and is going to try to take the kids' lunch. And it's not like he has a group of a bunch of friends in that unit to like take pressure off him. So every time he plays a team with a good corner, a highly paid defensive guy, they are going to zone in on him. It's hard. It's a tough transition. It's not easy. No different for quarterbacks. You don't think all week long the Tennessee defenders circled Caleb Williams, Seattle circled Bo Nix, Tampa. Think how many guys on Tampa have a Super Bowl ring, played for years with Tom Brady. They've been going to the playoffs 4 straight years. They just won a playoff game. They embarrassed Jalen Hurts, who makes $45 million a year on national television in the wild card round. It was Monday Night Football. You think they just went, oh yeah, but we'll let Jaden light us up. We're intimidated. Fuck no. So it is hard. And the key with these young guys is like sometimes I think the easiest time to kind of assess yourself or look in the mirror is when shit hits the fan. I've been fired a couple times. It's probably when I was my most ambitious and I fought the hardest. Why? Because I was at my lowest spot. When times are good, sometimes it's hard to find motivation and have that same fire burning into you. It's why we admire like the crazy successful people, whether it's Michael Jordan or Tom Brady or Tiger Woods or, Steve Jobs or Warren Buffett. It's like, what keeps them going? How do they keep, and they tell these stories, how they like make things up in their head to keep the desire. Or a super successful business guy goes, every night I think about being broke, and you have to do that. Well, when you struggle as a rookie quarterback, you don't need to manipulate anything. It's like you got embarrassed. And when your coaches coach you hard throughout the next week, like, this is hard, guys. Like, you got to listen to what I'm telling you. You need to calm down. You need to take the check down. In college, especially for Jaden and Caleb, they could be superhuman. It was really easy. It was like at any moment I can run around and make something happen. And I'm better than 99.9% of people that I'm playing against. My physical attributes and my talent. We're in the NFL, even playing bad teams have guys that can eat your lunch and a coordinator who can just throw you off. And the other thing with the coordinator, once they find something that's kind of working, they will just go to that well over and over and over again. So all 3 of these guys struggled. I think it's kind of a good thing, especially if you're Sean Payton, Eberflus and the offensive staff, Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. You can kind of just like, hey, guys, this is going to be difficult. This is not easy. Like Caleb and Jaden Daniels, we saw on Hard Knocks when he gets up in front of the room and says his signing bonus was $25 million. And I understand Caleb's made good money when he was at USC. It wasn't $25 million in your bank account, Rich. So it's like, listen, we all got money. And a lot of guys you're going to play have a lot more money than you. So we got to figure this out. Like next week, the Bears are playing the Houston Texans. They got Derek Stingley, who's going to be a $100 million corner. They got multiple defensive linemen who are high millions level guys. Like they got a head coach, D'Amico, who has played and coached in this league for a long period of time, who I'd call very good schematically. It ain't going to be easy. And the next week, and the next week, and the next week. There are not off weeks. This is not college football, where when you do lose to an inferior opponent, it's a complete embarrassment. In the NFL, like the Bengals could beat the Patriots. Or screwed that one up. Patriots could beat the Bengals. Massive lines for week 1 were like not even a touchdown. It was Denver, 6 points on the road in Seattle, rookie quarterback. Arizona, 6.5 points on the road in Buffalo. Buffalo's a team that's won double-digit games 4 straight years, goes to playoffs every year, wins playoff games. Arizona hasn't sniffed the playoffs in a while. They're not even getting a touchdown. That's how difficult this is. I remember sitting, and people might laugh at this name, but David Culley, who was an excellent position coach, when I was with the Eagles. And I used to, my first year, I had random tasks, and I don't know if it was the injury report or maybe the weather report, or I was taking them something, and we were playing. The Bills at the time were really bad, and we were playing the Bills. And I'm like, kind of an easy week here. And he wasn't happy with that comment. He's like, son, they got a lot of guys that drive really nice cars on that team. They got good players. And if you ever have that mindset as a coach or a player in this league, you will lose. And he was right. It's true. So as a rookie quarterback, this is not going to be what CJ Stroud did last year is an outlier. So I'm not jumping off the ship on Caleb, but I do expect it to be a lot more difficult than everyone thinks. Like even Justin Fields, who was all over the map last year for the Bears, had played in the NFL for a while, understood the speed of guys, understood like throws that he could attempt to make, had experience on the side. None of these guys have any experience. Think of the first time you ever walk into a job, whether it's when you're young in your early 20s or whether you've done it recently. At first, early on, like there's a feeling out process. You don't start putting your feet on your desk till maybe 6 months, a year in. Then you get comfortable. You know everyone's name. Hey, Bill, James, how's the weekend? It doesn't happen day one. And that's what Sunday was for these guys. Day one in the most competitive physical sport we have in this country. I'd include hockey, but newfound hockey guy. Two other things. I watched Indy and Houston Monday afternoon because while I had it on my TV, I wasn't super locked in. And I was like, that's too good of a game not to just watch back. And on NFL Plus, it's like $99 a year. You can watch these condensed games. So you can watch the TV copy, condensed game in like 30 minutes. I just have it on my computer. Boom. I can be shooting a couple emails while it plays, watch it, and it's over quick. It's been doing that forever. And was blown away. First and foremost, the Texans, I feel even better about them. CJ is really a throwback player. Last night we were watching the Sunday night game, and Maria looked at me after Jared Goff had his running first down. She's like, geez, he's really slow. I was like, yeah, he's kind of a throwback player. Those type guys don't really exist anymore. He was much more like the players that I grew up on. 6'4", 6'5", couldn't really move, sits in the pocket and throws. He's not a runner. Those guys don't really exist. And what makes CJ Stroud kind of unique is he's a better athlete than Goff, but he's a pocket passer. He wants to sit in the pocket and make throws. That is his game, which usually can sustain for a long period of time. That's why Jared Goff's going to have an 18-year career. Same with CJ Stroud if they don't get injured. And they're less likely to get injured because they're not running around getting crushed like Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels can't slide. It's getting hit constantly. Say Anthony Richardson getting popped all the time. And Houston's really good. Nico Collins and Tank Dell has to be one of the better 1-2 wide receiver combos that are young. I mean, Nico, I didn't know much about him till last year when he kind of broke out. I was texting with a buddy who's in the loop, and he basically said, like, not only is he an awesome player, he's super humble, super high character, just the type guy you want on your team. And when I watch the Houston Texans, they feel like a group that just has a bunch of D'Amico types, bunch of physical guys that like football. Obviously, they have a lot of talent. They're a smart team. Like, it's a really, really high level team. And they got a good young quarterback. Like, that's a team that should win 13 plus games. And I actually don't think Indy's that far off. I've been watching football for 30 plus years. Been doing it for a living now for about 15, maybe even a little longer, since 2008. So 16 years, college and pro. And Anthony Richardson's first touchdown pass to, I forget who it was even to, might have been one of the best individual throws I've ever seen in the sport. He's a right-handed quarterback. He's rolling to his left, off his back foot. Like on Twitter and the blogs, they keep writing a 60-yard pass. It actually was like 68 yards. So I'm going to round up and call it a 70-yard pass. Did he hit the guy in stride? There is a short list of human beings that have ever played the sport that could pull that off. In my lifetime, like Elway was a little before my time, at least in his prime. It would obviously be Favre, Rodgers, Mahomes, Allen. I mean, it is not a long list of guys that could do it. Like Brady and Manning could not do it because they're not athletic enough. And they don't have Brady has a good arm when his feet is set. Manning could not have made that throw. It is just such a like of the top 10 quarterbacks of like the Steve Youngs and the Joe Montanas, they couldn't do it. Obviously, Elway and Marino, when they were his age, could pull that off. But it is a small group of people. Forever, it was like Jamarcus Russell could throw it 700 yards, but he couldn't play. Like Anthony Richardson, who is a work in progress. Like CJ Stroud's not really a work in progress. Obviously, you can get better when you're young, but his style is kind of a style. Where Anthony Richardson's still a little erratic, balls fly. He went 9 of 19 yesterday for like 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Threw a bad pick. But his second touchdown over the middle on like a deep in, where the defender, for most guys, probably picks it off because the guy's not throwing 150 miles an hour. But he throws just an absolute rope that hits the wide receiver faster than you can even blink. Like his physical attributes are everything you want in a quote unquote project. Then you just hope he's willing to work. Because if you work hard at it and you have the football smarts, you can naturally improve. Now, is he ever going to be, Drew Brees accuracy or Steve Young? Probably not. But that is a very talented player. Houston won. I think Houston's headed toward 13, 14 wins. I think the Colts are a 10, 11 win team. Like that's a playoff team. And the physicality in that game, I mean, Joe Mixon running for 160 yards looked fantastic. If the Texans are going to get that running back, Diggs had a couple touchdowns. He's really their third wide receiver. That's a good squad. Love D'Amico. Love Slowick. That was a fun game. And last but not least, and I mentioned this to Colin, props to Jerry, who just understands TV, understands marketing. He put that story out for a reason on Sunday morning. Like, this is our day, boys. We're going to own the morning before anyone kicks off with the number one story. And then obviously we got the Tom Brady game. So they're going to be talking about Dallas, not just for the 4 hours of the game, but for like 2.5 before it. And to think they're like, yeah, we'll just sign them. And they start doing it on Friday. Clearly they had been working on this thing for a while. And I would imagine it's basically been done regardless what was said. This was a marketing ploy, which works. And Jerry likes being in the headlines, even if he's naturally in the headlines anyway. But sometimes, Colin had an old saying, don't try to be happier than happy. And sometimes we always try to upgrade coaches. It's the cool part about football. Like, can we do better? Should we fire this guy? In all offseason, it was like, is McCarthy and Sirianni on the hot seat? Why get the Sirianni thing? Because you go, what's he really doing? Where you look at Mike McCarthy, who has won a Super Bowl and was, the head coach / offensive mind for one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen in Rodgers in Green Bay. And now he's currently the offensive coordinator as well as the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. And in 2023, Dak had the best year of his career, threw 36 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Now, until they answer the bell in January, that conversation isn't going to go away. But he's won 12 games 3 straight years. I think they got a very good chance to win the division again. Them and the Eagles, to me, are a coin flip. And his quarterback excels under him. So, like, Bill's out there, and it's a conversation that's not going to go away. But let's say McCarthy wins 12 games again and loses in the second round. You're going to fire him for Bill? Well, Bill's not the offensive coordinator. Bill's going to bring in Josh McDaniels. You just gave Dak Prescott $230 million, which he now by far is your most important asset in your franchise. It's not even close. So whenever you invest highly into something in any industry, you kind of got to put all your focus toward that thing because you need it to succeed. It's what the Browns try to do with Deshaun Watson. Turns out he's unsalvageable. Well, this is working with Dak. This is 1,000,000% working. Why would you mess with it? Is it inconceivable if the Cowboys just have a solid start? Doesn't Jerry just go like, is it really going to get that much better than this? Why would I risk this thing going the other way? Because right now I know for a fact I'm a playoff team every year with Mike and Dak. Why wouldn't I just want to keep that rolling? And as I've said, football's a little weird. Like, the only thing we've really learned the last 25 years is Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, if you're playing them in January, or Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they're going to beat you. But everyone else, like Eli got hot a couple times. Joe Flacco got hot. Cam Newton one year Matt Ryan got hot. Like, Dak is capable of just 2 good games. All of a sudden, you're in the NFC Championship game. It is very plausible. It has not happened. It doesn't mean it won't happen. Who would have thought 2 years ago Brock Purdy would have been a starting quarterback in a Super Bowl? This Dallas team is really good. They do a great job, and Mike deserves credit for drafting offensive linemen high and then immediately inserting them and having them function. They started a rookie left tackle who's a late first-round pick who coming out of college was viewed as very raw against the defensive player of the year. And it went pretty damn well. So, like, if I was Jerry, honestly, I would extend Mike McCarthy. And maybe if you're Mike, like, I'm not taking a low ball because if you were to fire me, I'm better than 99% of anyone that's going to be out on the open market. Look at my resume. So I think the situation yesterday, Dak getting the extension was really, really good for Mike. And if I had to make a prediction, I bet Mike has a contract extension before midway of the season if the Cowboys are winning football games, which I would expect them to do.